The smell of stale coffee and frying bacon hung heavy, a familiar scent in Millie's diner. Sunlight, weak and filtered, barely penetrated the dusty window panes. An older man, Ray Collins, made his way to his usual corner booth. His steps were measured, a slight unevenness betrayed by the tap-tap-tap of his wooden cane against the worn linoleum floor. Each tap echoed a story, a history etched onto his weathered face. He offered a small, almost shy smile to a couple already seated, a gesture of quiet acknowledgement. This diner, this routine, was a small island of normalcy in a life shaped by sacrifice. He'd given a part of himself, his left leg, in service to his country, a debt he never regretted paying. Yet, there were mornings, like this one, when the phantom pain in his missing limb seemed to amplify the quiet ache of loneliness. He settled into the booth, the cool, cracked vinyl a familiar comfort beneath his touch. He waited for his usual cup of black coffee, a simple pleasure. Then, a new waitress approached. Her face was sharp, her movements impatient. Her eyes, cold and assessing, swept over him, from his lined face to his prosthetic leg. Her words, clipped and dismissive, shattered the diner's quiet hum. "We don't serve people like you here." The air in the diner seemed to thicken, to solidify. Conversations, once a low murmur, ceased abruptly. The clatter of cutlery against plates fell silent. Ray's hand tightened on his cane, his knuckles whitening. His gentle eyes widened, reflecting a hurt that went deeper than any physical wound. He hadn't asked for much, just a cup of coffee, a moment of quiet reflection. Instead, he was met with judgment, dismissed, categorized because of a part of himself he had surrendered for something larger. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable, a palpable tension filling the space. Ray, his dignity wounded but unbroken, reached into his worn wallet. He placed a crumpled bill on the table, a silent offering, a gesture of quiet defiance. Then, slowly, painfully, he turned and made his way out. The diner door creaked open, admitting a rush of cool morning air. A snicker, sharp and cutting, echoed from a table near the window, the final sting as he stepped back onto the sidewalk. The weight of the waitress's words settled heavily on his shoulders, a burden far heavier than his years. The day, once promising a simple routine, now carried the bitter taste of rejection. Outside, the sounds of the town rushed on. Teenagers on skateboards, their laughter sharp and carefree, zipped past. One nearly collided with him, their shouted apology laced with youthful impatience. Ray steadied himself against a nearby lamppost, the jolt sending a familiar ache through his missing limb. It was a phantom pain, a constant reminder of sacrifice. He didn't react with anger, didn't raise his voice. That wasn't his nature. He carried the hurt, the sting of the waitress's words, with a quiet dignity, a stoic resilience forged in a life of service. The people inside the diner hadn't seen the whole man. They hadn't witnessed the unseen acts that defined his days. They didn't know about the careful way he picked up trash in the park, ensuring the children had a clean space to play. They weren't aware of the small kindnesses he extended to his elderly neighbors, delivering their mail, carrying groceries, offering a steadying hand. Unseen, unheard, he was a silent thread of goodness woven into the fabric of their community. Back at his small trailer, its paint peeling, its windows reflecting the fading light, Ray didn't reach for the phone. There were no angry calls, no online posts detailing his mistreatment. He simply sat in his worn armchair, a faded photograph resting on the table beside him. The image showed a younger Ray, surrounded by his unit, his brothers, their faces full of camaraderie and purpose. He opened a well-worn journal, its pages filled with neat handwritten entries. He added a few lines about the morning, a factual account, devoid of self-pity or outrage. The words were precise, economical, like the man himself. He then turned on his old radio, the soft melody of a jazz tune filling the quiet space. The music was a balm, a gentle counterpoint to the day's harshness. His gaze drifted to the window, the setting sun casting long shadows across his face. His eyes, usually filled with a quiet kindness, held a complex mix of sadness and contemplation. He was a man who had faced down enemies, who had stared into the heart of conflict, but the casual cruelty of a stranger in his own town had struck a different kind of blow, a wound that went deeper than skin and bone. The incident at Millie's diner did not remain isolated. One of the regulars, a young woman who always occupied a quiet corner booth, couldn't dismiss the image of Ray's wounded expression. A photograph, discreetly captured, found its way into a digital space, a small, regional online community of veterans and their families. The accompanying text was simple, a query. "Does anyone recognize this man?" The response was immediate, powerful. Dozens recognized him. Not just as a fellow veteran, but as the quiet figure who placed flags on every grave in the veterans' cemetery before dawn on Memorial Day. The man who volunteered at the local soup kitchen, never seeking recognition. The one who had once helped a family stranded on the highway during a snowstorm. Stories, anecdotes, recollections poured forth, painting a portrait of a man whose service extended far beyond his time in uniform. The news of his mistreatment spread rapidly through this network, a quiet but intense outrage igniting. These were not individuals given to public displays of emotion or grand gestures. Their bonds were forged in shared sacrifice, loyalty, and a deep understanding of the invisible wounds carried by those who serve. They understood the language of quiet strength, the unspoken code of brotherhood, and they would not allow one of their own to be treated with such disrespect. Unseen by Millie and her new waitress, a response began to take shape. Phone calls were made, messages exchanged, plans formulated. It wasn't a call to arms, but a silent mobilization of individuals connected by a shared sense of duty and a fierce protectiveness towards their own. The slighted veteran was not as alone as he seemed. His quiet acts of service, his unassuming kindness, had unknowingly woven a web of respect and loyalty that was about to be activated. The wheels of a quiet justice began to turn. The morning at Millie's diner began as usual. The clatter of plates, the hiss of the coffee machine, the murmur of early conversations. But this day held a different undercurrent. As the breakfast rush gained momentum, a series of vehicles arrived outside. Not police cars, not news vans, but a collection of sleek black SUVs and rugged pickup trucks. From these vehicles emerged a group of men and women. Their movements were purposeful, their expressions resolute. They carried themselves with an understated authority, a quiet confidence that commanded attention. Leading them was a distinguished man, his presence radiating a controlled power. He walked directly into the diner, his gaze unwavering. The usual morning chatter ceased abruptly. All eyes turned to the group, a mixture of curiosity and unease filling the air. He placed a framed photograph on the counter. It depicted a younger Ray, standing proudly among a group of uniformed men and women, their faces reflecting camaraderie and shared purpose. He addressed the waitress, his voice calm but firm. He spoke of Ray's service, the sacrifices he had made, the quiet goodness he brought to their community. Others in the group began to speak, their voices filled with respect and gratitude. They recounted stories of Ray's unseen acts of kindness, the early morning visits to the cemetery, the selfless volunteer work, the quiet acts of heroism that had gone unnoticed. The diner owner, visibly shaken and unaware of the previous day's incident, listened in stunned silence. The visitors weren't there to cause a scene, to demand retribution. They were there to deliver a silent, powerful message about respect, about remembrance, and about the true measure of a man's character. The shocking event wasn't one of violence or anger, but of quiet, unwavering solidarity, a community rising to honor one of their own in a way no one in the diner had anticipated. The morning unfolded with hushed conversations and a palpable shift in the diner's atmosphere. The memory of Ray's mistreatment was replaced by a growing awareness of the quiet hero in their midst.